All right, boys, we're logging in. Very exciting day. It is reset day, but it is not any normal reset day. It is a reset day that brings with it buffs to Arms Warrior in PvP. 25% increased damage on Execute, 20% increased damage for Bladestorm, and 15% increased damage for Demolish in particular. So that's very exciting. Those obviously are big buffs to Slayer, which specializes in Execute and Bladestorm, but still buffs Colossus, which now will probably end up using Execute instead of Slam, which is great, because Execute's a fun button to press. It's nice to have in your build. It's nice to have in your rotation. It feels good to play, and it feels good to press. So, also Demolish is sick. Demolish buffs will be very, very nice, because that's should be another fun button to press, and not pressing it seems kind of weird. But you can still hold on to your stacks and stuff, but it's nice to let that thing rip. So, along with those buffs, I think that the builds change a little bit. So what I'm going to do is take you through a couple different Arms Warrior builds, and then we'll talk a little bit about stats, and then I will probably even mention a couple macros that you guys might be interested in having. That will be neat for you. We'll try not to make it too long of a discussion, because I do want to play, but let's get to it. So the first build is a Colossus bleed-focused Dragon Roar setup. The one thing that's kind of something I want to mention is I would probably play this in BGs in particular. If I was going to play this in Arena as like a cleavy build, I would probably take out Crackling Thunder and move it into Berserker Shout, or I guess Piercing Howl. If you're going to play Piercing Howl, you may as well just play Crackling Thunder, but if you can get some value out of getting your teammates out of like AoE fears, then you should probably play Berserker Shout. But if you don't need to worry about that, this is a 70% slow on a 30-second cooldown. This is a 40% slow on like a 6-second cooldown. Plus, it's going to get your bleeds all over the place, which is really, really nice. So, other than that, this is kind of what I would say is nice for like an AoE situation. We're going a little light on utility. We're kind of trying to get down to as much of this good stuff as we can with like Mortal Strike damage, Slam damage buffed. You could think about moving this over. I think we'll probably end up still pressing Slam sometimes, but like if you never press Slam, then don't take that talent, move it over. But we might press Slam sometimes still. And if you never, like I said, you might want to put it in here. But if you like this, a couple seconds off of some of your like utility spells, it's not a bad investment. Maybe I'd even say that now that we're going to be pressing Execute more, you could take that out of Slam. It's whatever. But we're going into a lot of the Dragon Roar stuff. We're putting Dragon Roar on a shorter cooldown. It's called Thunderous Roar, but you know what I mean. Then we're also making it last a little bit longer and make all your bleeds do more damage during the Thunderous Roar window, and Colossus does do a lot of bleed damage, so that's nice. I'm playing a little point and crit. It ain't much, but you could take this for a little bit more rage, a little bit more crit chance during your avatar. If you didn't want to play this talent, you could put it over in like 1 point and spear. That would be fine too, but this is just kind of fun to play. We're more interested in haste than we are with crit, so we're going there. I do think that having a wider AoE shockwave that comes off cooldown more frequently is good for Colossus, because Colossus also has a longer duration shockwave, so that's a powerful skill for you to have. So juicing up your shockwave, juicing up your bleeds, it's a good idea for Colossus. So in terms of the actual choices that you have, I'm taking a longer shockwave duration. I'm taking more bleed damage with Rend and Deep Wounds per stack of Colossal Might, and we're taking a more Ignore Pain like damage reduction, so that's nice. Then on the actual arms tree, so now that Execute should be doing damage, we can then once again talent for it. So I'm taking points out of Blood Surge, I'm taking points out of Fueled by Violence. Those are nice to have, but we don't really need to like find a place to spend points, because we're not spending points on Execute anymore, right? So we can actually take those out and reinvest in things like Improved Execute, right? Improved Execute could have gone in one of these places. I'm gonna plop it there, right? That just makes more sense now. You're probably not spamming Execute as Colossus, but it's nice to have it on not a cooldown. We're going down for all these bleed things, buffing up our bleeds. I was playing Skull Splitter for like an AoE build. I don't know if I love Skull Splitter as much as I love Improved Sweeping Strikes. If you want Skull Splitter, consider maybe taking it out of Improved Sweeping Strikes and putting it into Skull Splitter. That is the kind of thing that I would do if I was focused on a like 2v2 arena build, for example, which I'll talk about that in a second. I would take this out and put it there. This is just a little bit more single target damage. This is a little bit more cleave and building your stacks faster is basically the decision that you're making there. Now we are keeping exhilarating blows, of course, but now we can do Massacre. If execute hits hard, we want to be able to press it more frequently, and below 35% health is nice. We have Executioner's Precision, so you get more Mortal Strike damage whenever you press execute, right? That works out really well because you do get buffed damage on Mortal Strike. So your Mortal Strikes already hit really hard, and making them hit even harder is great. Going down here, we're still playing Unhinged. That helps us build stacks of Colossal Might more quickly. Any way that we can get more Mortal Strikes out is good. A thing to mention, though, is you could, instead of playing Massacre, I'm going to test this. You could, instead of playing Massacre, play Fatality for a stronger low health execute, or you could even take it out of Executioner's Precision, which I don't think is as good of an idea, to make it a very scary, like, demolish into sudden death, or into Massacre execute with Fatality stacks on it. I want to like Fatality, but it doesn't really ever seem to really do the trick. But there are definitely some points that you could take out to buff, or to give you Fatality, to try for more finishing power. Maybe that's the kind of thing you might want to try in twos, but we'll see. We'll see. This is what I'm thinking for like an more like a AoE scenario. For like a single target scenario, we're going to be taking out Colossus Smash, or we're going to be taking out Warbreaker for Colossus Smash. We're going to be going back into Slam. Instead of the Shockwave thing, we can just do more damage after a kick, and then you can go for some utility in twos, help your buddies out. That's nice too. You can change this over as well. Now, you'll remember I was talking about taking improved sweeping strikes out, so I did. I moved that there into Skull Splitter, just for the single target pressure. That's kind of nice. For twos, you may also want to consider going Fatality if it's against something that can't remove your Fatality stacks with some kind of immunity. Something to consider. I will continue to experiment. Fatality is definitely kind of like it's not usually good. It might be kind of cool situation, but this is pretty much what I'm thinking for more of like a single target, still bleed heavy Colossus. If you wanted to go crazy and do like a Colossus spear crit situation, this build is not optimized. You can tell because I have this point in there still. Where would this one go? So for the Colossus spear variation, we have all the execute stuff. What are we missing that we like? Where is this living? This 1 point. It could, I guess, go all the way into Fatality. What happened up here, then? Sorry, this build is not optimized. I don't know. Interesting. Maybe I had an extra point somewhere else, because it looks like you can get all of this. What am I missing in this other build? Oh, it was Skull Splitter instead of Fatality. Oh, yeah, F Skull Splitter. Take Fatality. Skull Splitter is cool, but F Skull Splitter. Let's go with Fatality. I like that better. Okay. I will probably try to provide links for you guys for these builds, just to get you started. Fatality in twos is kind of fun. But I also want to talk about Slayer a bit. So, the build that I am most interested in for Slayer is one that involves not a lot of bleeds. It's just, like, hitting hard. Which is weird, because Arms does do a lot of bleed damage. Now, the Slayer stuff's going to be a little bit more experimental. But this could be really fun, right? This situation, nothing super crazy changes over here for the Arms side of things. This should be familiar to you, but we are playing Spear, right? So we're going Spear, and we're going the crit. And the design idea behind this is locking somebody down with an Avatar crit buffed, like Blade Storm into Execute, or into Mortal Strike Execute combo, right? So that does seem kind of fun to me. But the weird thing is, we don't really have a lot of places to put the points that we're taking out of the bleed. So I'm putting it in like Rage Generation, maybe Healing. But you'll see there's not really anywhere good to put these points. So if you didn't want to do that, you could definitely just still put them in bleed and just sort of gently benefit passively from having like your deep wounds damage buffed, right? You got to put a point in Rend and to get that, and then you could find something else. Like if you were doing single target, then you could do this kind of thing, and that would be fine too. Then you're not trolling as hard with like not taking like the bleeds that you would get. I'm not thinking I'm really gonna press Rend. But we can take the deep wounds buff damage, that's fine. But the main idea here is getting all the execute stuff so you can shred. What I would love to do is find a way to get Juggernaut, and I think the only way to get Juggernaut is to take away things that are like really good, like Unhinged. But maybe Slayer doesn't need Unhinged, which is unhinged to think about because you're going to be Blade Storming more frequently, and you get to cast your Mortal Strikes more frequently. Just more damage on your Blade Storm seems really good. You could take it out of Executioner's Precision, but again, that seems kind of crazy too. But it's worth testing to see if you can keep these stacks up. Because if you're able to keep Execute stacks up in PvP, and Slayer executes like chunk, I mean, that could be kind of crazy, right? This is more reliable though. But this is kind of a fun build where you're not going very bleed heavy and you're just hammering with executes. If you wanted to go more bleed heavy, you could go a Slayer Roar variant where you are taking a little bit more bleed. You're going Roar, you're taking Bloodletting, and I would probably still try to move this talent point out of here and maybe put it in Fatality or Skull Splitter or something like that, right? And that could be a couple fun builds for arms that I'm gonna experiment with, and I'll keep you guys posted. Always, like, I'll make these videos for you guys to give you like a starting point, and then I will immediately go test things out. So you can always find us on stream playing some combination of Fury and arms. And since arms got buffed, I'm definitely very interested in playing arms. But I do want to mention that Fury didn't get changed at all, so it is absolutely still gonna be banging, and may even still be better than arms. But the fact that arms got brought up a little bit is very exciting and gives us some cool stuff to play around with. In terms of like stats for arms, I'm still recommending a heavy haste setup. What's up, dude? I'm going with haste where I can and mastery where I cannot. That's pretty safe. So with PvP gear on, you're gonna have enough verse as it is. This will change when I get my set bonuses put together. Arms does want the 4 set, so I will be able to get 4 set, and then we'll test it out, which will feel really, really nice, I bet. But basically, if you are gearing for arms, then buy haste verse gear, where you can get haste verse gear, and where you can't get haste verse gear, get versatility mastery gear. And I'm still gemming for haste and mastery. That's the combo that I'm looking at. My actual gear selections were a little bit weird this time around. I think it's better overall. If I was gonna make a brand new character, I'd make 2 rings that were like haste verse with elemental focusing iris, get your free weapon from 2500, and then probably get like gloves, chest, and shoulders, and helmet as tier options, and then just fill in your gear from there. But what I've done so far is just kind of grab haste mastery, or sorry, haste verse where I can get it, and mastery verse where I can't. That's why you're gonna have fast globals, good rage generation, good deep wounds ticks, and then you're just gonna hit hard with mastery where so. All right, let's see what we got. We have our stats, and I mean, I guess I'm enchanting for movement speed. TY, man. All right. Anything else we got to talk about? We could talk about macros very briefly. There's nothing like too crazy. And a lot of my macros probably still have like some weird stuff in them. But like basic stuff like, let me see, is this one of the ones that we want? Yeah, like you can make something like this, right? Like I showed to Colossus Smash, that puts you in battle stance. It'll cast Colossus Smash or War Breaker if you're talented for it. It will cancel your Blade Storm. You can have it casting Avatar for you and popping your trinket as well if you're using an on use. That's like a basic burst trinket and macro with Avatar. Then you have like this, I think, isn't this like, this might even be my Fury one, but this puts me in this, yeah, this is Fury. We don't want to be in Berserker stance, but we can make it say battle stance. Cast Avatar, cast all your other stuff. You don't really need this. You can just cast like Thunderous Roar in there if you wanted to. You might want to have a keybind separate for Avatar is basically what I'm saying. This is what I have this one for. Other cool things that are like not like basic macros. I made one of these. I don't think I'm going to use it as much now, but I have one like a cast sequence for Sweeping Strike Skull Splitter. But if I'm not playing Skull Splitter, you don't really need it. But I think cast sequence macros are kind of neat to be able to reset equals 22 Sweeping Strikes, and then after Sweeping Strikes, it'll turn it, that button will turn into Skull Splitter. I don't think you need this anymore if you're not playing Skull Splitter. But aside from like basic like focus macros and targeting and stuff, there's really not that much that you really need to do anymore. Because before I had like a macro where it would like execute and then turn into slam, but I won't need that anymore because execute is just its own like good button now, and I'm actually pressing execute back to back now because we have improved execute, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, just Colossus Smash with whatever burst you want. You can put Avatar in it, but I do think that you might want to split those up too. So I'm thinking about it now. It's like there's not really that many macros. You may want a cancel or a Blade Storm Demolish button that puts you in. We don't need Sharpen Blade anymore. That puts you in battle stance. Cast Avatar if you're on global. Now, if you have a fresh global, it will demolish without Avatar going off. So just keep that in mind. But you may want to have like a battle stance, trinket activator, casting Avatar, and demolish button. That's pretty fun too. And in terms of rotation, for Colossus, a lot of what you're doing is trying to build up stacks. So you'll sweeping strikes before you jump in. You'll Colossus smash, and then start Mortal Strike, and probably get one Mortal Strike off, at least, before you start slamming in Mortal Strikes. Overpower when you can't Mortal Strike. Hopefully you get Execute proc. Once that slows down, if you're just trying to do as much damage as possible, like once you have no rage or you have no procs, and you don't have enough rage for, you know, a Mortal Strike, you don't have any overpower procs is what I mean, then you can Blade Storm. Then once you get enough stacks, another Sweeping Strikes, little Shock Waver, Hammer the Demolish, ba-boom, Mortal Strike out, and then you're just back to work. You may want to consider waiting for your Warbreaker before you demolish if it lines up, for the maximum burst, right? The first one's going to be a little bit weird because Warbreaker might be off cooldown, but it's absolutely fine to hold on to your demolish until you have Warbreaker. But eventually they'll start to line up again. You'll see. They're starting to line up now, because every time that you spend rage with anger management, your Warbreaker comes up faster. And every time you would have gained a demolish stack that doesn't give you one, then it also brings the cooldown down. So now we'll have a Warbreaker demolish all lined up. Then you can Blade Storm after your demolish with sweeping strikes up. It doesn't do anything, but you can Blade Storm right after your demolish, and then you're already back to like a ton of stacks. So demolish ends up having like a pretty fun playstyle. That's a little bit different than Slayer, but you are playing around demolish a little bit, and you're looking forward to building up those stacks so you can have all of your stuff line up again. You'll have your stun, you'll have your sweeping strikes, you'll have Warbreaker. This one we wouldn't have Dragon Roar. So Warbreaker, Dragon Roar, Shockwave, Demolish, Big Pump. All right. So for Slayer, I don't know if it's going to let me change talents. I can probably go into the Slayer Roar build. The Slayer Roar build is like the same thing, so you don't even worry about Demolish. Slayer is just like very straightforward. You're just going through your priority system. You're just Mortal Striking when you can, overpowering when you can't Mortal Strike, pressing Execute on proc, I would imagine. I don't think you're going to press Execute over Mortal Strike, but maybe with Slayer Executes hitting like absolute demonic damage. Is that a 2.8? Yeah, 2.8. Maybe you do, yeah, maybe Execute is actually your first priority. That is some demonic damage. Yeah, Slayer is going to be feeling nasty. But yeah, if you just want to play like a normal standard kind of warrior, without having to worry about like demolish stacks and when to spend them, you can just play Slayer and just Blade Storm once you get your full stacks and with a Warbreaker and stuff. Like, that is so much Blade Storm damage. That's crazy. Slayer is going to be a very straightforward and fast-paced and fun-to-play build, though. And both of them will do well with haste, because you'll have the Slaying Strikes proccing, you'll have your anger management going well with all the rage generation and rage spending. I need to take the Sweeping Strikes macro out, though. Just make a normal one. But, yeah, arms should be pumping. Execute hitting hard is going to be really, really nice. And the only time I'm slamming is if I have like literally no other button to press, but I still want to have a damage global for some reason. Frequently, instead of slamming, you should just hamstring again, or like thunderclap to get your rend up. It is very rare that you'll be pressing slam now, I think. But I mean, sometimes you're just only trying to do damage, and for some reason you don't have any other buttons to press, and so you're slamming, right? That's something to consider. But without Skull Splitter in these builds, you don't really have to worry too much about like getting your Thunderous Roar up and Skull Splitting during it. If you want to play Skull Splitter, you can. Just remember what Skull Splitter does is it makes your bleeds tick faster, so you want to have a rend up and a deep wounds up, and then ideally you're Skull Splitting like during your Warbreaker haste buff and your Thunderous Roar like bleed all damage increased buff too, right? There's gonna be a time where you have it where you don't do that, but again, another macro that might be kind of fun for you guys is the it's another cast sequence where it'll cast let's see, where is it? It's in here somewheres. This one. So it'll be a reset equals 44, so it'll Thunderous Roar, and then the button will turn into Skull Splitter, and then it'll be Skull Splitter again. And then by the time that this whole sequence is over, then you will have Thunderous Roar back up again. So it'll just be like one button where you can press Thunderous Roar. The next time you press the button, it'll Skull Splitter. So you kind of, it's just like an easy It just feels good to press it that way kind of thing. But again, there's not a lot of builds that I'm playing right now that are going to be using Skull Splitter, so as a result, that is not really a button that I need anymore. But all in all, I'm pretty excited to play Arms. Arms has been fun. I mean, Fury has been stronger, and I do love Fury, but I've been playing a fair amount of Arms, and it's felt pretty good. And I think now it's just gonna be better. And if you love Fury, to keep playing Fury, Arms will be there for you. But I'll probably continue to play both, and I will experiment with builds, and I will let you guys know what's up. I just wanted to give you guys a basic look at the talents. I want to let you guys know what gear to look for in terms of what stats and stuff. Maybe even a little bit about like how to like set up your gear for like early season, like, you know, craft your rings and then get your 2 set either from buying gear from the vendor. Right, you can buy gear from the vendor and then you can take it over to the catalyst and use a catalyst charge to turn your PvP gear into tier set like this item. Or you can use your conquest to buy one of these items to turn PvE tier, like this, into something that scales in PvP. So I'm going to be using my catalyst charge on my shoulders, and then I'm going to be using this item right here on my helmet to get me 4-piece this week. And then I wanted to give you guys a couple macros. There's really, again, I feel like with Arms, there's really not that much that you need outside of like the basic targeting macros. And every video, every guide I've ever made, like in the beginning of expansion, should have this. If you look at Bajheera macros, hopefully it'll show you things like target equals focus Stormbolt, or like intervene party 1, or intervene like your teammates. Hopefully those are the kind of things that will be there for you, so that we don't have to take, you know, an hour going through all my macros. Maybe we will do another macro update video. But if you find the basic syntax of these macros in any video ever, like my Mop Warrior video probably has these macros, and it's the same sort of thing. You're canceling your Blade Storm, your Storm Bolting. Now you don't want to be canceling your Blade Storm as Slayer, by the way. So you will need to make some like Slayer specific ones where it's just Stormbolt without a cancel or a Blade Storm. But those are really basic stuff. ChatGPT could write those for you. But I don't want to spend 30 minutes going through every macro when we need to get in the game and play and see what the heck's going on. But with that, talents, gear, a little bit of macro discussion for specifically these builds, and just general rotation. Mortal Strike on CD, Execute on proc, Overpower when you don't have Mortal Strike or Executes available. You do not need to stack 2 Overpowers before you Mortal Strike. Keep a hamstring up. When you can't Mortal Strike, Execute, or Overpower, consider pressing Thunderclap to keep a rend on people if you want to, just for more bleed damage. Good to go. Ready to pump. Your burst is Warbreaker Avatar, Mortal Strike, Blade Storm. If you have Demolish, you may want to consider doing the Warbreaker, Dragon Roar, Shockwave, Demolish for the maximum deeps. You can even, you know, usually it's going to be like a Warbreaker Thunderous Roar situation. But one of the things that's weird about that is you may even want to consider Thunderous Roaring first, and then Warbreakering, and then trying to Blade Storm quickly if people can peel you or disarm you. That's one thing that you can do, is use your Blade Storm to keep people from disarming you, because they're going to look to peel you instantly. Bro, Slayer, I feel like they may have buffed Execute for Slayer and not Colossus. I don't know, bro. Slayer Executes are looking nasty. We're going to have to play some Slayer, dude. That is some chunks. All right, we got to get in the game, bro. Anyway, hopefully that gets you guys started with some of these warrior changes and Arms warrior buffs. If you're excited to play Arms, hopefully this guide and discussion helps get you started. We will be on stream every day, usually from 11 to 2 p.m. PST. Well, this is weekdays, actually. 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. PST on the weekdays, and then every day we are on probably like 7 to like 10:30-ish p.m. PST, and then frequently doing morning gym streams. But anyway, every day we have an evening stream. Weekdays we do a daytime stream. Always welcome to swing by, check in on what's going on, ask me any questions you may have. Also, feel free to drop those questions in the comment section on YouTube. We'll see you guys on stream. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.